In 2020, because of COVID-19, traveling is out, but there's no reason you can't meet old and make new friends at an Agile conference. The Scrum Master Toolbox podcast teamed up with Tom Henriksen to organize the 4th year of the Agile Online Summit, and you can attend for free. There will be networking events, lots of talks on important topics, and 8 amazing keynotes from Mary Poppendick to Alan Holub, Jeff Patton, who's the creator of user story mapping, Neil Killick, who's a no estimates pioneer, Jeff Watts, author of Scrum Mastery, a great book for Scrum Masters, Jeff Gotthelf, Bob Galen, and our very own Markus Hammarberg, who's the author of the Bungsu Story, a great Agile transformation story. You can get your free tickets at bit.ly/SMAOS 2020. All lowercase, all one word. Once again, bit.ly/SMAOS 2020. All lowercase, all one word, and the link is also on the show notes. You can get your free ticket or opt for the full digital access that lets you keep all the conference videos forever. And for example, organize Agile learning sessions at work by watching those videos. You can get the full digital access at bit.ly/SMAOS 2020. But don't forget, there will be lots of live networking events, so I'll see you at the conference floor. Hello everybody, welcome to one more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. And this week joining us from the Boston area in the US is Rachel Macasek. Did I pronounce your last name correctly there?
You did so well, yes.
Thank you, with your help, of course. So Rachel is passionate about individual and team growth. She has fostered an environment of collaboration and continuous improvement in the manufacturing, biotech, and software industries. Currently, Rachel is focused on the power of an individual and recently acquired her leadership and performance coaching certification. So, Rachel, that was a short intro to you and what you do. So take a minute, tell us a little bit more about yourself, and how did you end up becoming a Scrum Master?
Yeah, so just like lots of Scrum Masters that I've met over the years, everyone has a very unique journey. And so I really have only been in software for about 3 years. Most of my career has actually been in manufacturing. So I did food manufacturing for most of my career, worked in some other industries as well in manufacturing, and really loved it. I was a maintenance manager at a plant that unfortunately ended up closing, and then stayed with the company remotely as a part of their reliability team, corporate reliability team, and traveled around to other plants talking about continuous improvement, team development, working with leadership there, and really loved that role. But it just, the travel is tough, man. And needed to stay a little closer to home. And my husband is a software engineer, and being in the Boston area, there's a lot of companies out here, and it's tech is really exciting, and had always thought about, making that shift, and it seems to be the right time. And so my husband was like, well, you don't seem like you want to code, and I'm not exactly sure what you do at your current job, but I think there's this Scrum Master type role that fits quite well with maybe some of the stuff that you're already doing. So I did some informational interviews with a few folks at other companies, and happened to luck out that there was a Scrum Master opening at a company, and the hiring manager was super kind, knowing that I had no idea what Scrum actually, was, other than like a quick Google search. Didn't have my CSM or anything.
And you didn't hear the podcast at that time, I'm sure.
I didn't hear. No, I was completely blind. And the Scrum Master, like the title in and of itself, it's like, what? It's so ambiguous. And so, had this interview with him, and he gave me a lot of great resources. I read up on, and I had to facilitate a retrospective in my interview. So, read up on the Agile Retrospectives book, which was super helpful. And I, the powers that be, they somehow decided to hire me. So literally, like my first week on the job was going through CSM training and figuring out what the Scrum Master role was all about. And from there, have jumped around to a couple of companies and have really enjoyed this role. And I think it's thinking about my manufacturing career, it's kind of every aspect of the different parts of different roles that I had there, all kind of bottled up into one. So yeah, that's my journey. That's how I became a Scrum Master.
That's a very different journey from what we usually have here on the podcast. And especially your manufacturing background is quite interesting to me. So I'm excited to hear your answers to the questions we have, because obviously I'm sure you will have a different twist on what they mean and, of course, how a Scrum Master should look at those. And so let's start with the first one. So on Mondays, we try to explore things that, didn't really go as we expected. So Rachel, tell us that story, a story of a moment where you, as a Scrum Master, you were trying to do your best, but of course, that was to be a learning journey and the best just wasn't good enough. So tell us that story, Rachel.
Yeah, sure. I think I kind of have two, if that's cool. I think at more of a team, at a team level, as I transitioned into the Scrum Master role, I think for me, I was so focused on the mechanics and the ceremonies of, just making sure I was doing the right thing and doing things.
And what did that look like? Like as you were walking through that, ceremony focused Scrum Master role, how did it feel for you?
It felt, I had such imposter syndrome. Like, I don't think I can do this. Everything's I was making sure everything was done by the book. When we were in backlog refinement, everyone has to make sure that they're holding up the points and, of pointing poker. And like, I got too much in my head of the mechanics and of going through the ceremonies and making sure, like I said, I had just gone through CSM training, right? So making sure that everything was done just like training. And I think I really lost sight of really the why behind we do these things, right? We do pointing poker, not just to like get it into Jira or whatever tool that you're using and have an estimate so that we can use that against velocity, right? It's really for us to make sure we're having a conversation and that everyone understands the work so that once we pick it up, we're good to go as a team and everyone feels comfortable. And so I was losing because I was so focused on the mechanics, I was losing a lot of the why, or wasn't focused on the why. And I think my team suffered a bit of that because of we have to do it this way, thou shalt do it this way. And you could kind of see them tuning out a little bit. And so I think, after a couple of months of getting a little bit more comfortable with the framework, more comfortable with my teams. I had some really great other Scrum Masters at the company who mentored me too, and were like, look, we hired you because we know you facilitated in other areas before. You gotta not worry so much about the mechanics and trust yourself a little bit more. And I think just all of that helped. But man, I feel sorry for the teams for those first couple of months because they were probably like, "Who is this chick? What is she doing?"
But you were trying your best, and of course that's where we all start, right? With the ceremonies, and we all have imposter syndrome in one way or the other. That's just such a normal and human thing to feel. But how did you actually switch focus? What was that moment or those moments that triggered you to actually start asking why?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I had these really great Scrum Masters at the company. And so, I'd ask them to come shadow certain ceremonies with me, whether it was stand up or group or backlog refinement or, planning, whatever, just to get feedback and, was open to them kind of also kind of co-facilitating. And I would shadow them too, just to, I think it's something that I wish that Scrum Masters would get the opportunity to do more. We're so busy being with our own teams that usually at the companies that I've been at, we don't get the opportunity to kind of watch other Scrum Masters work day to day. And I think being exposed to other people's styles is such a great way for an individual Scrum Master to learn and expand their thought and how to ask questions. But anyways, because this was kind of part of my onboarding shadowing, a lot of the Scrum Masters just ask these really powerful what and how questions. They'd be in stand up and they wouldn't be, like necessarily running the stand up or anything. The team would do all of that, but then they kind of, make an observation and say like, hey, I'm noticing that there's a lot of things in progress right now. Like, what's going on there? And then just like let the team kind of, have that conversation and figure out like, is this too much? Is this the right amount? Are we blocked on a lot of stuff? Where might we need help? And so I think watching that and as soon as I started to see more of that, it was like, I think the light bulb went off of like, yeah, I know how to do this, because it wasn't very much different than when I was working with teams in manufacturing. It was the same type of.
But there you felt probably more secure to ask those open-ended questions, right?
Exactly, because I had been in that environment for 5 years. And, so I think it was a little bit of having that confidence in myself, but also observing and watching others in that role and starting to really see the parallels between the two industries.
Absolutely. One thing that you said that I really want to highlight is observing others in that role, right? So, and that's why I started the podcast in the first place, so that we could all observe each other, so that we could all contribute to each other's growth and journey, because there are many levels of experience in the Scrum Master world. This particular story you were telling, Rachel, was about when you were just getting started, but there are many stories we can share from all the moments of our journey. And even when we have a lot of experience, there are still difficult moments. We still fail. We still need to learn. So I think that's a great point. Observe others in that role.
Yeah. And yeah, just like you said, I'm still learning, right? I'm still a newbie on this whole thing in the grand scheme of things, but yes, you can understand the frameworks and things like that, but each team is different. You're working with individuals on a day-to-day basis. And as one of my colleagues says, humans are fascinating. Like everyone, has their own story, has their own perception of things, their experiences. And so I think you have to kind of keep learning and growing and leveraging, podcasts like this, stories other people tell, stories of your coworkers. I think you just have to have that mindset.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that with us, Rachel.
Yeah, no problem.
Monday is about what we learn from our obstacles and our failures. But tomorrow is Team Tuesday here on the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. We explore teams and their journeys, the habits they develop that threaten their performance, how each of our guests helped their teams evolve, and the one key lesson they learned from that experience. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.